The morning of March 12, 1945, brought cold rain to the woods outside Remagen, Germany. Oberleutnant Hans Becker sat in the commander's cupola of his Panther tank, scanning the tree line through his periscope. His crew had been at their positions since 0400 hours. The engine idled quietly behind him. Becker's tank was painted in the late-war ambush camouflage, dark green with irregular brown stripes. It was one of 6 Panthers from the 2nd Company, Panzer Regiment 9, positioned in a defensive line along a muddy forest road. Becker was 23 years old. He had been commanding tanks since 1943. He had fought in Russia. He had fought in France after the Normandy invasion. He was good at his job. His crew trusted him. His gunner, Feldwebel Ernst Meyer, could hit a moving target at 1,500 meters. His driver, Obergefreifer Klaus Schmidt, could maneuver the 45-ton Panther through terrain that would stop a lighter tank. His loader and radio operator were experienced, steady under fire. The Panther they crewed was a formidable machine. The Panzerkampfwagen 5, Panther Ausführung G, 75mm high-velocity gun, 100mm of sloped frontal armor, 700 horsepower Maybach engine, top speed of 46 km per hour on roads, less cross-country. It could kill any Allied tank at ranges where Allied tanks could not effectively return fire. The Panther's gun could penetrate 132mm of armor at 1,000 meters. An American Sherman's frontal armor was only 76mm thick, 51mm on the sides. Becker knew these numbers. Every German tanker knew them. The Panther was superior. German engineering was superior. That belief had been drilled into them through training, through propaganda broadcasts, through every tactical briefing. Germany built the best tanks in the world, Panthers, Tigers, King Tigers, machines that American and British tanks could not match in direct combat. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. At 0715, movement appeared through the trees. Becker adjusted his optics. 3 vehicles, American markings, Sherman tanks, M4, 3 models by the look of them. They were advancing slowly down the road in column formation, turrets traversing left and right, searching for threats. Standard American tactics. Becker's radio crackled. The company commander's voice, calm and professional. All units, targets approaching from the west. Panthers 1 and 2 will engage. Others hold fire and observe. Becker's tank was Panther 1. He pressed his throat microphone. Understood. Panther 1, engaging. He tapped Meyer on the shoulder. Gunner, target, tank, lead vehicle. Meyer already had the lead Sherman in his sight. Identified. Range? 1,100 meters. Fire when ready. The Panther's gun fired. The 75mm armor-piercing round left the barrel at 925 meters per second. At 1,100 meters, flight time was just over 1 second. The round struck the lead Sherman on the front glacis plate, penetrated, and detonated inside the crew compartment. The Sherman stopped moving. Smoke poured from the hatches. Target hit, Meyer reported. Panther, 2, commanded by Lieutenant Werner Fischer, fired almost simultaneously. His round struck the 2nd Sherman in the turret. The American tank slewed to the left, then stopped, its gun drooping. Crew members bailed out, running for cover in the trees. The 3rd Sherman reversed frantically, backing down the road, trying to escape. Becker ordered another round. Meyer tracked the retreating target, led it slightly. Fired. The round struck the Sherman's side armor as it turned. The tank stopped. No crew emerged. 3 Shermans destroyed in less than 2 minutes. Becker felt no satisfaction, only the mechanical efficiency of a job done correctly. This was what Panthers did. This was what they were built for. The forest fell silent again except for the crackling of burning fuel and ammunition cooking off in the destroyed American tanks. Becker scanned for more targets. Nothing moved. 2 hours passed. The rain continued. Then, at 0930, the radio came alive. Multiple contacts approaching from multiple directions. Not 3 tanks this time. Dozens. Becker raised his head out of the cupola, rain hitting his face. Through his binoculars he could see them. Shermans, everywhere, advancing through the trees in a loose formation, 10, 15, 20 of them, more behind those, and behind them, more still. The company commander's voice on the radio, no longer calm. All Panthers, multiple targets, engage at will. Becker dropped back into the turret. Gunner, target, tank, closest threat. Meyer fired, hit, the Sherman, brewed up, ammunition exploding inside. The loader slammed another round into the breech. Meyer traversed right, acquired another target, fired, hit. Another Sherman stopped, smoke pouring from the engine deck. Panther 2 fired. Panther 3 fired. German tanks destroyed American tanks with mechanical precision. But for every Sherman that stopped burning, 2 more appeared. The Americans were not retreating. They were not taking cover. They were simply advancing through the loss, replacing destroyed tanks with fresh ones. Becker's loader was working frantically. Load, fire, load, fire. The gun barrel was getting hot. Meyer's face was covered in sweat despite the cold rain outside. They had destroyed 5 Shermans, 6, 7. Then a round struck Becker's Panther on the right side. The armor held, but the impact was enormous. The tank rocked. Schmidt, the driver, reported damage to the right track. They could still move, but slower now, and only by turning left. Becker ordered Schmidt to back into a better position behind a thick oak tree. Panther 3 exploded. A Sherman had flanked it, got a shot into the thinner side armor. The German tank burned. Panther 4 was hit multiple times, immobilized, crew bailing out under fire. Panther 5 retreated, reversing through the trees, trying to reach a new position. Becker fired again. Another Sherman stopped. But there were more, always more. He could see them moving between the trees. 10 Shermans for every Panther, 20 Shermans, 30. At 1000 hours, Becker's Panther had destroyed 11 American tanks. His ammunition racks were nearly empty. 15 rounds fired, 11 hits, 11 confirmed kills. A 93% hit rate. Meyer was an excellent gunner, but Becker's company had started with 6 Panthers. Now 3 were destroyed, 2 were retreating. Becker's tank was damaged, low on ammunition, and surrounded by advancing American armor that showed no sign of stopping. The radio ordered withdrawal. All remaining Panthers to fall back to secondary positions 5 kilometers east. Becker ordered Schmidt to move. The Panther reversed slowly, its damaged track making grinding noises. They withdrew through the forest, leaving the burning wrecks behind. That afternoon, in a temporary defensive position near a small village, Becker sat on the rear deck of his Panther, eating cold rations. His crew was exhausted. They had won the tactical engagement, 11 kills for 1 damaged tank. By any military standard, that was a success. That was what German tank doctrine promised. Superior machines, superior tactics, superior crews, defeating inferior American equipment through skill and firepower. But Becker felt no sense of victory, because in the distance he could hear the rumble of engines. American engines, dozens of them, hundreds of them. Replacement, Shermans moving forward to replace the 11 he had destroyed that morning, and more behind those, and more behind those. An endless stream of American armor that did not stop, did not slow down, did not run out of tanks. Becker had been told since 1943 that Germany was winning because German tanks were better, and German tanks were better. His Panther could destroy 3 Shermans before a Sherman could destroy him. But what did that matter when the Americans had 30 Shermans to send against his 1 Panther? That night, an American artillery barrage destroyed 2 of the remaining Panthers in Becker's company. The next morning, American infantry overran the village. Becker and his crew were captured on March 13, 1945. They had held their position for less than 24 hours. Becker spent the rest of the war in a prisoner of war camp. He was transported by truck, then by train, then by truck again, ending up in a facility in eastern France. The camp held several thousand German prisoners, mostly soldiers captured during the final months of the war. tank crews, infantry, artillerymen, some Luftwaffe personnel. The American guards were professional. The food was adequate. The barracks were crowded but clean. The prisoners received mail, packages from the Red Cross, medical care when needed. Becker had heard stories about Soviet prisoner of war camps where German soldiers froze or starved. American camps were different. In late March, an American intelligence officer arrived at the camp, Captain Robert Morrison, a 32-year-old tank officer from Ohio who spoke reasonable German. Morrison was conducting interviews with captured German tank crews. He wanted to understand German tactics, German training, German perspectives on American equipment. Becker was selected for interview on March 28, 1945. He sat across a wooden table from Morrison in a small interrogation room. No threats, no intimidation. Morrison offered him a cigarette. Becker accepted. Morrison spoke in German. Oberleutnant Becker, I understand you. Commanded a Panther tank? Yes. You engaged American armor near Remagen? Yes. How many American tanks did you destroy? Becker hesitated, then answered honestly. 11, in one engagement. Morrison made a note. 11 tanks. What type? Sherman. M4A3 models. And your Panther was damaged but not destroyed. Correct. Morrison leaned back. So your tank destroyed 11 of ours, and we only damaged yours. That sounds like a German victory. Becker said nothing. Morrison continued, I've interviewed 23 German tank commanders in the past 2 weeks. Panthers, Tigers, Panzer IVs. Most of them have similar stories. High kill ratios, superior firepower, superior armor. Your tanks are better than ours. Nobody disputes that. Becker waited. So why did you lose? Morrison asked. Becker looked at the American captain. The question was not rhetorical. Morrison genuinely wanted to know, and Becker realized that the American already knew the answer. He was asking to see if Becker understood it too. Because you had more tanks than we had ammunition, Becker said quietly. Morrison nodded. Tell me about that morning near Remagen. Walk me through what you saw. Becker described the engagement, the initial contact, the destruction of the first 3 Shermans, the arrival of dozens more. The endless stream of American armor advancing through the forest, absorbing losses, replacing destroyed tanks with fresh ones. Never stopping. Morrison listened, taking notes. When Becker finished, Morrison said, Let me tell you something about those Shermans you destroyed. Every one of them was replaced within 48 hours. New tanks, new crews. The destroyed tanks were recovered by American maintenance units, either repaired and returned to service or stripped for parts. Nothing was wasted. Becker absorbed this information. Morrison continued. The United States produced 49,324 Sherman tanks during the war. 49,000. Germany produced about 6,000 Panthers. Your Panther could kill 3 Shermans before being destroyed. But we had 8 Shermans for every one of your Panthers. The mathematics are simple. Becker understood mathematics. He was an engineer before the war. The numbers made sense. But they contradicted everything he had been taught about tank warfare. German doctrine emphasizes quality, Becker said. A superior tank with a superior crew defeats an inferior tank. That's true, Morrison said. In a single engagement, your Panther is better than our Sherman. But war is not a single engagement. War is logistics. War is production. War is the ability to replace losses faster than the enemy can inflict them. Morrison pulled out a folder. I want to show you something. He laid several documents on the table. Production figures, American industrial output, tank manufacturing statistics. In 1943, the United States produced 29,497 tanks, Morrison said. 29,000 in 1 year. That's more tanks than Germany produced in the entire war from 1939 to 1945. Becker stared at the numbers. They seemed impossible, and that's just tanks, Morrison continued. In 1944, The United States built 96,000 aircraft. 96,000. In 1 year, we built more aircraft in 1944 than Japan built during the entire war. Morrison tapped the documents. The Detroit Arsenal tank plant in Michigan could produce 1 Sherman tank every hour by 1943. Every hour. That's 24 tanks per day, 100 to 68 tanks per week. One factory, in one American city, produced more tanks in a month than all German tank factories combined produced in 3 months. Becker tried to process this information. The scale was beyond anything he had imagined. "Your Panther is a magnificent machine," Morrison said. "Truly. The 75mm gun is excellent. The armor is superior. The fire control is better than ours. German engineering is outstanding. But here's what you need to understand. The Sherman was designed for mass production. It was designed to be built quickly, repaired easily, and transported efficiently." Morrison pulled out another document. A Sherman can be manufactured in less time than it takes to build a Panther. A Sherman can be repaired in the field by a maintenance crew in hours. If a Sherman's engine fails, we swap in a new engine, and the tank is operational again the next day. Your Panther's Maybach engine is complicated, difficult to repair, and almost impossible to replace in the field. Becker knew this was true. German tank maintenance was a constant problem. Panthers broke down frequently. Transmissions failed, engines overheated, drive wheels cracked, and replacement parts were scarce. "Reliability," Morrison said. "American tanks are reliable. A Sherman can drive 500 kilometers without a major breakdown. How far can a Panther drive?" Becker did not answer. He knew that Panthers rarely drove more than 150 kilometers without mechanical problems. Logistics," Morrison said again. "A Sherman weighs 30 tons. It can cross most bridges. It can be transported by train, by ship, by landing craft. A Panther weighs 45 tons. Many bridges can't support it. It requires specialized transport. A Tiger weighs 56 tons. A King Tiger weighs 68 tons. How do you move a 68-ton tank across a river when the bridge is destroyed?" Becker understood. He had seen Tigers and King Tigers abandoned because they could not cross damaged bridges or navigate narrow roads. Morrison lit another cigarette. "Here's the fundamental difference between German doctrine and American doctrine. Germany built tanks to win battles. America built tanks to win the war." He let that sink in. "Your Panther can destroy 3 Shermans. But when those 3 Shermans are destroyed, we send 6 more. And when those 6 are destroyed, we send 12 more. We produce Shermans faster than you can destroy them. That is industrial warfare." Becker was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "How do you supply all those tanks? Fuel, ammunition, replacement parts?" Morrison smiled grimly. "We produced 2 million army trucks during the war. 2 million. We call it the Red Ball Express. Convoys of trucks moving supplies from ports to frontline units, 24 hours a day. We built the trucks. We produced the fuel. We manufactured the ammunition. Everything you destroyed this morning was already replaced before the sun set." He pulled out one final document. "Fortress Europe," you called it. Germany's defensive perimeter. But here's what Fortress Europe faced. The United States produced 86,000 tanks, 300,000 aircraft, 257,000 artillery pieces, 2 million trucks, 11,000 ships. And that was just American production. Add British production, Soviet production, Canadian production. The combined industrial capacity of the Allied nations was 10 times greater than Germany and Japan combined. Becker stared at the numbers. 10 times greater. Not twice as much. Not 3 times. 10 times. "You fought well," Morrison said. "Your crew fought well. You destroyed 11 of our tanks. But those 11 tanks were replaced before you even reached your secondary position. The crews were replaced. The ammunition was replaced. Everything was replaced. That is why you lost." Becker understood. For the first time, he truly understood. Germany had built superior tanks. German crews were well trained. German tactics were sound, but none of that mattered when facing an enemy who could replace losses instantly, who could produce war material faster than it could be destroyed, who could overwhelm superior technology with superior numbers and superior logistics. Morrison stood up. "Thank you for your time, Oberleutnant. You'll be repatriated to Germany after the war ends." Becker remained seated. "Why are you telling me this?" Morrison looked at him. "Because you asked an honest question. And because you deserve an honest answer. You destroyed 11 of our tanks. You did your job. But the outcome was never in doubt, not because your tank was inferior, because you were fighting an industrial power that outproduced you 10-1. The interview ended. Becker returned to his barracks. That night, he lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about numbers. 49,000 Shermans, 86,000 tanks total, 300,000 aircraft, 2 million trucks. He thought about his 11 kills. A good day by German standards. Excellent shooting by Meyer. Professional tactics. Everything done correctly, and utterly meaningless in the larger context of the war. Germany had bet on quality, on superior engineering, on the belief that one German tank could defeat 3 or 4 Allied tanks. And that was true. One Panther could defeat 4 Shermans. But America had sent 8 Shermans, and when those 8 were destroyed, America sent 16 more. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The German tank commanders in the prisoner of war camp talked among themselves. Many had similar experiences: high kill ratios, tactical victories, strategic defeat. One Tiger commander claimed to have destroyed 32 Soviet tanks in a single engagement near Kursk in 1943, and then the Soviets sent 50 more tanks, and then 100 more, and the Tiger ran out of ammunition and had to withdraw. Another Panther commander described fighting near Normandy in June of 1944. His company had destroyed 40 Allied tanks in 3 days, and then Allied air power destroyed his entire company. Rocket-firing Typhoons, P-47 Thunderbolts with bombs, American artillery. The combination was overwhelming. Technology alone did not win wars. Superior tanks did not win wars. Industrial capacity won wars. The ability to produce, supply, replace, and sustain military forces won wars. Germany could build the best tank in the world, but if Germany could only build 6,000 of them, while America built 50,000 adequate tanks, the outcome was inevitable. Becker learned more details as the weeks passed. American prisoners who had been captured and later released shared information. German officers who had seen intelligence reports explained what they knew. The picture became clearer. The Ford Willow Run plant in Michigan produced one B-24 Liberator bomber every 63 minutes. The Chrysler Detroit Arsenal tank plant produced Shermans at a rate of 24 per day. American steel production was 10 times greater than German steel production. American oil production was 20 times greater. American aluminum production was 15 times greater. And unlike German factories, American factories were never bombed. They operated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with full labor forces, unlimited raw materials, and complete safety from air attack. German factories operated under constant threat from Allied bombing. German workers labored in damaged facilities with inadequate materials and frequent air raid interruptions. Germany's industrial production had peaked in 1944, but by then it was too late. The German economy was running on fumes. Oil supplies were critical. Steel was rationed. Aluminum was scarce. Every tank produced required steel that could have built 2 tanks if the materials had been available. Every aircraft produced required aluminum that could have built 3 aircraft under peacetime conditions. America had no such constraints. American factories had unlimited resources. American steel mills produced more steel in 1 month than Germany produced in 3. American oil fields produced more oil in 1 week than Germany produced in a month. The numbers were staggering. Becker met an American tank commander in the camp, a lieutenant named James Crawford, who had been captured during the Battle of the Bulge and later released after Allied forces overran the camp where he was held. Crawford had commanded a Sherman in the 1st Armoured Division. They spoke in broken German and broken English, finding common ground despite the language barrier. Crawford described his experiences. Our Sherman was called Denver, Crawford said. 75mm gun, 5-man crew. We fought from Normandy to Germany. The tank was hit 4 times. 4 times. We repaired it every time. New tracks, new engine, new transmission. 30 days. The tank was back in action. That Sherman destroyed 7 German tanks, 12 trucks, 3 anti-tank guns. Not because it was the best tank, because it kept working. Becker asked about tactics. Crawford explained American armored doctrine. Advance in strength, use combined arms. Infantry, armor, artillery, air support, working together. When you encounter superior German armor, call in artillery. Call in airstrikes. Overwhelm with firepower from multiple sources. We knew your Panthers were better, Crawford said. Everyone knew. But we had air support. You didn't. We had artillery. You didn't. That was the difference. Crawford told a story. His Sherman had encountered a Tiger near Bastogne in December 1944. The Tiger fired first, hit Crawford's Sherman on the front glacis, but the round deflected. Crawford's Sherman retreated, called for support. 10 minutes later, 3 P-47 Thunderbolts attacked the Tiger with rockets. The Tiger was destroyed. American doctrine. Do not fight fair, use every advantage. Becker understood. Germany had designed tanks for tank versus tank combat, one-on-one duels where superior firepower and armor would prevail. America had designed an integrated system where tanks were one component of a combined arms approach. American tanks did not need to defeat German tanks in direct combat. American tanks just needed to survive long enough for American artillery and American air power to destroy German tanks. And American tanks were designed to be easily produced, easily repaired, and easily replaced. That was the genius of the Sherman. It was not the best tank. It was the best tank for industrial warfare. It was the right tool for the type of war America planned to fight. In April 1945, word reached the camp that Hitler was dead. Germany had surrendered. The war in Europe was over. Becker and the other German prisoners waited for repatriation. Some would go home immediately. Others would remain in Allied custody for months, helping with reconstruction, clearing rubble, repairing infrastructure. Becker was released in July 1945. He returned to Germany by train. The country was destroyed, cities in ruins, factories bombed, infrastructure shattered, millions dead. And for what? He returned to his hometown in Bavaria. His family's house was still standing, though damaged. His parents had survived. His younger brother had been killed on the Eastern Front in 1944. His sister was missing, presumed dead in the bombing of Dresden. Becker found work as a mechanic. His engineering background helped. He repaired trucks, tractors, anything that needed fixing. Life was difficult. Food was rationed. Coal was scarce. But life continued. Years later, in the 1950s, Becker attended a symposium on tank warfare. German veterans, Allied veterans, military historians discussing the lessons of the war. Someone asked him about his experiences commanding a Panther. Becker told the story of March 12, 1945. 11 Sherman tanks destroyed. A tactical victory. A strategic irrelevance. We thought we could win through superior technology, Becker said. We thought our better tanks would defeat their worse tanks. We were wrong. Not because our tanks weren't better. They were. But war is not won by technology alone. War is won by production, logistics, and the ability to sustain military operations over time. America understood this. Germany did not. He paused. The Sherman was not the best tank of World War II. The Panther was better. The Tiger was better, but the Sherman was the tank that won the war, because there were 49,000 of them, because they could be produced faster than they could be destroyed, because American factories could replace losses in days while German factories needed months. That is the lesson. Quantity has a quality all its own. The broader implications of what Becker learned in that prisoner of war camp extended far beyond his personal experience. German military leadership had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of 20th century warfare. They had designed an army to fight short, decisive campaigns, blitzkrieg tactics, lightning war, strike hard, strike fast, win quickly, move to the next target. That strategy worked in Poland in 1939. It worked in France in 1940. It worked in the early stages of Operation Barbarossa in 1941. But when the war stretched into years instead of months, when Germany faced enemies with vastly greater industrial capacity, the entire German strategic framework collapsed. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, who commanded German forces in North Africa and later in France, understood this better than most. After encountering American industrial power firsthand, Rommel reportedly told his staff that Germany's only hope was to end the war before American production reached full capacity. By 1943, that moment had passed. American factories were producing war material at rates that German planners had considered impossible. The statistical reality was devastating. Between 1941 and 1945, the United States produced nearly 300,000 aircraft. Germany produced 119,000. The United States produced 86,000 tanks. Germany produced 46,000, and many of those were lighter Panzer III and Panzer IV models, not the heavy Panthers and Tigers that required enormous resources to build. But raw numbers tell only part of the story. American production was reliable, consistent, and scalable. German production fluctuated wildly based on Allied bombing campaigns, raw material shortages, and transportation disruptions. A German factory might produce 200 tanks one month and 50 tanks the next month because the aluminum shipment was destroyed by Allied aircraft or the coal supply was interrupted by partisan attacks on railroads. American factories faced no such disruptions. They operated at full capacity, continuously, for 4 straight years. The Willow Run bomber plant in Michigan covered 67 acres under one roof. The assembly line was more than 1 mile long. Workers could see B-24 Liberators taking shape from bare aluminum frames to completed aircraft in a matter of hours. That single factory produced more bombers than all Japanese aircraft factories combined. American shipyards told the same story. Henry Kaiser's shipyards on the West Coast revolutionized ship construction through prefabrication and modular assembly. Liberty ships that would have taken months to build using traditional methods were completed in weeks. In November 1942, Kaiser's Richmond shipyard assembled the Liberty ship Robert E. Peary in 4 days and 15 hours from keel laying to launch. 4 days. Germany could not build a destroyer in 4 months. This was the industrial capacity that Germany faced. This was the production machine that supplied not only American forces but also British forces through Lend-Lease, Soviet forces through Arctic convoys, and Free French forces in Africa and Europe. American factories equipped the entire Allied coalition. The Sherman tank embodied this philosophy perfectly. It was not designed to be invincible. It was designed to be producible. Engineers at the Detroit Arsenal deliberately chose components that could be manufactured quickly using existing industrial processes. The Sherman's welded hull was faster to produce than the Panther's interlocking plate armor. The Sherman's simple suspension could be assembled by workers with minimal training. The Sherman's engine, transmission, and final drive could be removed and replaced in hours. German tanks required specialized technicians and extensive workshop facilities. A Panther with transmission problems needed to be transported to a rear area depot, disassembled, rebuilt, and returned to service over weeks. A Sherman with the same problem received a replacement transmission from a maintenance unit and was operational the next day. American doctrine accepted losses. German doctrine tried to prevent them. But in a war of attrition against an enemy with 10 times your industrial capacity, preventing losses is impossible. The only viable strategy is to replace losses faster than the enemy can inflict them. America understood this. Germany did not. Becker's experience destroying 11 Sherman tanks while losing none of his own represented the tactical level of war where German superiority was real. But strategy operates at a different level. Strategy is not about individual battles. Strategy is about campaigns, logistics, production, and sustainability over time. Germany won most of the tank battles. Germany lost the war. Those two facts are not contradictory. They are complementary. Germany won tactical engagements through superior equipment and well-trained crews, but Germany lost the strategic war because it could not sustain those tactical victories. Every destroyed Sherman was replaced. Every lost Panther was gone forever. By May 1945, when Germany surrendered, the United States had more than 12,000 tanks in Europe ready for combat. Germany had fewer than 1,000 operational tanks remaining in the entire country. The arithmetic was simple and brutal. The lesson that Becker learned in that prisoner of war camp in 1945 remains relevant today. Technology matters, training matters, tactics matter, but logistics, production, and industrial capacity matter more. Wars are won not by building the best weapon, but by building enough adequate weapons and supporting them with the infrastructure to keep them fighting. The Sherman was adequate, the Panther was superior. But adequacy, produced in overwhelming quantity and supported by unmatched logistics, defeated superiority every time. That was the truth that Captain Morrison taught Oberleutnant Becker. That was the truth that won World War II. Quality without quantity is meaningless. The Germans learned that the hard way, one destroyed Sherman at a time, until they ran out of ammunition, ran out of fuel, ran out of tanks, and ran out of war. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.